Okay. We have a lot of information we're going over today. We have, as you have questions, pipe up. If there's questions in the chat, Annie's going to interrupt me and ask the questions. Or if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Going into 5059. Yes. The thing is, you might want to change it to 2 pages. I think I just said print.
And Annie, I made you co-host, so if you want to unmute or mute people.
Okay, thank you.
Can do
I
that
can.
too. Okay, we're going to go over all of the checklists, and then I have a few additional things I need to go over in addition to what's in the PowerPoint. So okay, we're going to go over the FY21 reporting changes and clarifications, report updates, our checklist for the student, the graduate, and the assessment. Someone asked if the checklist changed much from October. I don't think it has. It may have added a few things, especially in the DN area, the district of building attributes. May have had some clarifications on some things, but I don't think content-wise that the checklist has changed much from October. And then timeline. Calendars. Make sure you are updating your calendars for all calamity days, scheduled days off, and makeup days. And let's see if I can get rid of this. If remote learning was utilized instead of taking a day off for calamity, you do not have to report exceptions on it this year. So it is going to be as any other day. A reminder though, if you were in person or hybrid and you went full remote for a calamity day, you do have to change your education delivery model on the DN record to indicate that you were remote. And then when you came back from remote, which possibly was the next day, you add another entry to indicate that you were hybrid or in person, whatever your learning model was. Make sure you're looking at your calendar reports, that you're reporting the correct number of hours per day. I was working with a district the other day and looking at a calendar, and their high school calendar didn't have enough hours for the year. So are your hours per day on your sub-calendar maintenance accurate for instruction minus lunch? Are all of your days reported correctly as instruction days, or did you have days entered in as planned days off and you turned them into makeup days, or you had other things that those days should now be counted? You need to verify and make sure that all of your calendars have the correct number of hours on them and that everything is reported accurately. The calendar collection is separate from the other collections, but the other collections are dependent on your calendars being accurate. Your attendance and absence is calculated based on your calendars. And so having your calendars accurate affects so many things. there are tons of reports in the ad hoc reports that will help with EMIS reporting. And this is a listing. I'm not going to read every single one. And I probably have missed a few that are important. One of the ones that you need to generate for your guidance counselors and make sure that they are verifying is the EMIS FN graduate detail. This is pulling from the FN tab, and it is showing all of your students how they are indicated for met fine arts requirement, met economic and financial literacy, exempt from PE, met core requirements, exempt from core requirements. It shows how those are reported, and ODE is analyzing that information. We received a report based on FY20 submitted information, and I had 2 or 3 districts that did not report any of their seniors as meeting either financial literacy or fine arts. So make sure, and I know a lot of people wait until they're seniors and they do ad hocs and mass update all of my kids to be, they met this. Students can meet fine arts requirement at 7th grade. As soon as they meet fine arts requirement, you should be marking it at that time, not waiting until they're a senior. On the PE exemption, if it doesn't see a PE exemption, it's looking for a PE credit. If they don't have the half PE credit on their course summary record, then they didn't meet that requirement. They didn't meet grad requirements. So there is also a course summary report that will show all of, and I don't know if the one that is in the ad hoc is strictly for seniors or if it shows all of your students. If it's strictly for seniors, you may have to run the graduate course summary update to update your seniors, but you can run that update multiple times. But have your counselors make sure that all of your students are having their credits in the correct areas. There were districts that didn't have any credits marked in physical science, or not all of their students had credits marked in physical science. Your guidance counselors need to be on top of that and make sure that they have the subject area for credit correct on the courses, that they are looking and making sure, you know, not just running their list to make sure the kids have all of the proper courses, but also aligning that up with what is being reported, that the subject area for credit is accurate on all of your courses, so that when you are submitting this core graduate summary record and the core graduate data, that all of your students are showing that they did properly meet graduation requirements. Kathy.
Sorry. Okay, so there's a button that we, like update, delete, all that core thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm afraid to push it. What happens?
Are you having a Diana moment?
Okay, that's a very valid, that is a very valid question, Kathy. What the verify update, what the update does, because it says update and delete, there is a screen that is in the graduate collection menu. Maintain course summary record. And what that update on the update course summary record does, it is going out to each student's course history and manually entered course history and picking up the students that are marked as high school credit that they have completed and have earned credit in. And then it's adding up the credit value and then going to the course record and picking up the core subject area for credit and then populating that core summary record based on that core subject area for credit that is on the course, the EMIS tab of the course record, and adding that up for every student. It is also going to the college credit management screen and picking up any college credit hours that you have entered in on any student that took a course that is college credit plus, marked as dual credit, and that you have gone in and entered the number of hours that the student has earned of college credit. And so this course summary record is populating. Every time you do update, it is erasing what was in that screen before and recalculating.
Mary,
So,
Mary,
yes.
I hate to interrupt you, but Maureen couldn't hear the question. So could you repeat that? We can't hear the people
Okay.
questions. So I
The-
wanted to interrupt you because I knew you were like answering it and she may need to know what it was.
I thought I did repeat the question, but I'm apologize for that. The question was, I'm afraid to hit the update because it says delete and update on the course summary verify update. And what does that do? And so that's what I'm explaining is what the update on the verify update of the course summary record does. And so each time you hit the update, it is deleting what was there previously and rewriting that record based on the student's course history, credits, courses marked as high school credit with credit earned and per the subject area for credit that is on the EMIS tab of the course record. So if for some reason, oh, well, I know this course is marked as a life science, but it really should be physical science for Johnny. So I'm going to modify Johnny's course summary record. If you modify manually any of those course summary records, the next time you do an update, any of those manual modifications are wiped out. So I really discourage manual modifications on that record until you know that you are not going to be doing the update anymore. One thing it will also do, summer grads, their course history needs to be put in 1920, but they will show as a graduate in 2021. The graduate collection is unique because it crosses both years. And so it will pick up that course history. So I really encourage you to continue to run the update through when you have all of your summer grad credit information entered in so that all of their credits are reported accurately. That's a really good question. And we are going to be talking about a lot of this later on, but I did want to mention these two reports right now.
Okay, still with that. So after, like, my guidance waits until the last minute, like after the students are going to put in the college credit maintenance, to put the college credit in, and then I have to go, whatever, the management thing. Are you telling me that after I get that done, I still need to run that update core thing? Because from what you said before, for the reports that you received, some of the core stuff wasn't there, or credits weren't there, and you had just said that it grabs that when you do.
The question is, so after my guidance counselors get around to, before they dart out the door the second week of June, updating the college credit management screen with all of the college credit earned, do I need to run the update at that point to make sure all of that's picked up? And the answer is yes. You need to run the update every time you submit graduate data. You should be running that update. It should be the same way as every time you're running student collection, you're running major EMIS, you're running add-up EMIS, especially add-up EMIS. Every time you do the graduate collection, you should be running the update course summary record.
So if I have some kids that are at, I don't know, Eagle Wings or something, and they're like putting in the course history and core and stuff, what's gonna happen to their records when I push that thing?
The question is, what about students that are at Eagle Wings or my CTEC students, and we have to do the JVS conversion? That is in course history. And when you do the verify update and you do the update, it's going to pick up what's in course history. So it will grab those credits and it will be pulling that in.
Okay.
As long as those courses are marked is high school credit and they have credit value earned.
And they haven't changed what the core, like if it's elective or
Okay, that
subject. That's where I'm getting scared.
ODE said, don't use elective unless that's the absolute last option. If it is an English course, it should have whatever the subject code section of the manual says as the recommended subject area for credit. Because ODE will see when they get all of that, they'll see, oh, this person has 6 English classes and they only need 4, so I'm going to bump 2 of those down to elective. This person has 4 credits in math and 1 credit of algebra 2, and they only need 3 credits of math and 1 credit of algebra 2, so I'm going to bump that 4th one over to elective. ODE will do all of that for you, so you don't have to micromanage how each student's credits are divvied out. Sue.
So like for those CCP classes that CTEC might be putting in or high school, those put in manually? Are they putting those in manually? So when if we do this update, will it come out?
The question is for CCP courses that the career centers do, are they putting those in manually? So when we do this, will it wipe them out? No one is touching this course summary record except you. What is happening is career centers, Shelley, does all of her courses in CTEC. We do the JVS conversion and it pulls all of her course history for all of the students at CTEC and dumps it into your course history. And it will go into manually entered course history.
But the CCP credits do not.
The CCP credits do not. So when your counselors go into the college credit management screen, those courses are also part of the courses that need to have the college credit hours earned entered in. Work with your career center to get those college credit management hours. They know it doesn't go in to that screen, so they should be willing to work with you to get you that information so that it is in for everyone. CTEC plans on sending that out on Tuesday. That doesn't mean that the JVS conversion will be ready to be done on Tuesday.
Actually, it will be. I think it goes Tuesday or Wednesday.
But I know I have districts that have other career centers that they're working with. So the concept's the same. Either your high school's adding it manually entered into course history, or the JVS conversion creates the file that Megan will load that puts it into your course history. Once it is in your course history, then those courses that are College Credit Plus will show up on the College Credit Management manually entered courses screen for you to be able to enter in the college credit hours earned.
And so you include the EMIS coordinators on that email, right? I only send it to you guys. Oh, good. So, and tell you, you put it in, or you send it to whoever you, okay. I only deal with you guys, thank you.
And Shelley from CTEC only deals with the EMIS coordinators. I know other career centers deal with the high school guidance secretary. So you will need to make sure that they understand and know all of this. And that it is very important. I was really enlightened and surprised at this report that we got back last year. And I know FY20 was an odd year, but there's no excuse for totally skipping items. So it was just an oversight, I'm sure, on someone's part, but that's why I stress, especially on the fine arts and the PE, do it as soon as you know it. There is no way for the system to know that a student has cheered 2 years, been in 3 sports, took gymnastics through the Y, or swimming through the Y, or Ohio State, or any other myriad of things, participated in a marching band, that count as an PE credit. So unless you're marking that exempt from PE, it's looking for a course. And if it doesn't find a course, that student didn't meet PE credit.
At Lakewood, we do both. I put in PE exemptions and check that on the
So it is important that they are looking at it. I've had people tell me, oh, well, the financial literacy, they don't take till they're seniors. And by the time they're seniors, they've all met the fine arts. So we'll just wait until they're seniors. That's not necessarily true. So you need to keep up and make sure that kids did meet their fine arts requirements, that they did do what they need to do. So that's why, and I know you guys aren't the ones that do the grunt work on this, but hopefully you can convey my passion to
Mary,
the
oh,
building.
sorry. They also might leave, and then if you don't have that information in, I mean, I know.
That Annie has an excellent point. If they leave and go to another district, that other district may not have that information unless you give it to them, especially on the PE exemption.
And you're saying that one of the reports, the EMIS FN graduate detail will show if that is marked or not?
What is on the FN graduate tab? Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So sorry for the sidebar. That was too long when we have a lot to cover, but it was a good discussion. Okay. Now we're getting into reminders. Report all required elements. The checklist has everything listed categorically, and I'm going to, through the PowerPoint, go through each step, but there is an awful lot in the checklist, and I don't have my checklist in front of me, so I'm probably going to miss stating some things that I probably wanted to state. So read your checklist in detail and share with the people that need to do the information. And just because a specific field is not addressed doesn't mean it's not important to be reported. A couple years ago, we had new codes and EMIS situations for foster placed or court placed with a relative, non-foster, foster court placed going on open enrollment, and kinship care placed by Children's Services. So make sure if you have students in those situations that you are reporting them accurately. A reminder, you have to report students that are under autism scholarship, John Peters scholarship students, school age ESC. The ESC does not report school age students. They report preschool students, and you have to report preschool students that have a disability or are a court placed or open enrollment situation, even if they're atypical, that are educated by the ESC, but school age students, you have to report because the ESC doesn't.
And we report those 100%.
You report those as though you're educating them 100% because in essence, you are responsible for their education. You're responsible for everything about them. Preschool students found ineligible for services. This is, and they have made the two fields fatal errors if they're not filled in on the DN record, count of students that were transitioned prior to their 3rd birthday and count of students transitioned after the 3rd birthday for students that are residents of your district under Help Me Grow, transitioning out of Help Me Grow. I think it's Part B to Part C or Part C to, I don't remember which part to part. They're transitioning out of Help Me Grow. They need to be evaluated. If they are suspected of having a disability and do not qualify, you have to report them along with all of their events. If you're just evaluating them, but you aren't suspecting a disability, then you don't have to report them. And you cannot report a preschool student who is not 3.
Preschool students, we have, this year we have preschool students who are not under a grant, we're not under anything. I still need to report those students?
The question is, Career Center has an early childhood program. Part of the early childhood education program is that we operate a preschool. We aren't part of a grant. We aren't a special ed unit. Do we have to report them? And the question is yes, because it is part of your program. They said for years you didn't have to, and then about 3 years ago, they said, no, you do, because it's part of your program. So you do have to report your preschool students and any testing, ELA and cause that goes along with that.
But if they don't do any testing,
If you don't do any testing, there is no testing to report, but you have to report. It is something that they have said. We can ask the question again.
they're standard, they're not.
I will ask that question again, but I know 3 years ago, they said, yes, you did. So And then district placed in a non-pub. So if you have any students that your district placed in Eagle Wings or another non-pub, they seem to be cropping up all over the place, then you are responsible to report them as a cent reason of MP with the percent they're attending the non-pub. You also have to report all of the courses, and then that non-pub staff that are teaching those students as contracted staff.
Hey, Mary, there is a chat question. I don't know if you saw it. I had to step away for a minute.
I did not see it. I saw one pop up,
Okay.
but I did not see it.
So it is, there shouldn't be any cause because they don't educate the handicapped students. Is that, that's from Lori.
That is my thought also. That there wouldn't be any cause and there wouldn't be any ELA because those are both on students with disability. But I will ask the question to ODE about career centers that operate a preschool.
Oh, oh yeah, I don't think so either. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, 3 years ago, they said they did have to report them. And so Shelley wants to know, do they still have to report them?
Okay, I'll write that down and I might be able to find it even in some of our notes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Task 1, verify student admission withdrawals. Students are to be reported within 30 days of admission in the SCR collection. They're supposed to be reported within 30 days of withdrawal. Right now, there is no funding impact if they aren't reported in that time, but ODE could change that at any time. Make sure you are verifying that anyone who left during the year has been withdrawn. Last year's summer withdrawal would have a date prior to the first day of the 1920 or the 2021 school year. If you didn't report them last year, you can report the summer withdrawal record for those students. And if you have students now, and we'll get to this on the graduate checklist, but seniors who are residents attending elsewhere under open enrollment or for other reasons, if they graduated where they are attending, withdraw them now with the 41 to the district where they received their diploma. That will save you tons of headache. Report all of your students educated by another EMIS reporting entity, including court-placed open enrollment, superintendent's agreement. And there is a lot of information in the checklist on that step. Task 2, report preschool students. Students in early childhood education would have a How Received of an E. A student cannot be enrolled in more than one program at a time. So they can't be in the special ed program and the ECE program at the same time and be counted for both. If they're in the ECE, they're counted as ECE, but they can also be receiving special ed services. For the ESC, if they're not part of an ECE grant, they must be a How Received of an H or I if they are services only. Report what they are: court-placed, open enrollment, and you must report the correct percent of time. It's not just a flat 50 or 100. And there is a specific ad hoc report that will give you your preschool coding. Task 3, SSIDs. You should have SSIDs for all of your students. At the beginning of the year, we run it multiple times a week. We try to run it at least once a week unless we have someone that says, hey, we're getting ready for testing. I just added a dozen students. Can you run SSIDs for me? Verify non-reportable students. I'm going to park here a minute because you have students that are marked as preschool evaluation only students. They will show up on your non-reportable student list. Check with preschool to see, did any of these students start this year? If they did, then they need to be marked as report to EMIS and not left unchecked. Invariably, we find 2 or 3 students where they actually started educating, they put schedules on, they were never marked as report to EMIS. So their event records never got sent. All of their information never got sent until next year. And then you have all kinds of errors. And so check those students. And if any of them started this year, make sure they are marked report to EMIS. On the reverse, if any of them didn't start this year, but are going to start next year and be educated next year, promote them to next year, but withdraw them. Same day as admission. What that will do, and then next year, you will change the district admission date and the effective start date to be when they actually start. But what that will do, that will allow all of their event records for students that were evaluated for special ed, the events that were done prior to July 1 of 2021 will allow all of those to be reported. If you don't withdraw them, it thinks they should have been reported this year, and so it will ignore their event records. But they don't turn 3 until August 25th. But they were evaluated now, and their events are done now. Withdraw them and re-enroll them, or make sure they were promoted before you withdrew them, and update their record to show the new enrollment in the 21-22. Then all of their events will flow in the 21-22 school year as they should. Sue.
So by promoting them, are you going into that additional tab, doing that? Or how
Make
do you-
sure they have progression track.
Progression tab?
Make sure that they have a grade level next year. And then drop Megan an email and say, hey, make sure the student gets promoted when they're promoted.
When you do the admit and withdraw the same day, that you're unchecked to EMIS, that doesn't need to go to ODE, right?
When you do the admission and withdraw the same way, you weren't checking them to report to EMIS. That is correct, because the student did not attend this year. The student is going to attend next year, but not this year. So you'll have to make sure the next year you uncheck the report to EMIS so that their record does go and they're not showing up on the list of non-reportable students.
I guess every year I just withdrew them. And I guess I understood it that we just withdraw them and then we re-enroll them with those.
Sue's question is there a problem if I just withdraw them and re-enroll them with as a strict match in the 21-22? Not a problem. You can do that too. It's if they're coming in the 21-22, they do need to be in the 21-22 database, whether that is because they're promoted or whether that is because you enrolled them as a strict match. It doesn't matter. As long as they are showing as a new student in the 21-22 and that the 2021 is withdrawn so that in 21-22, their events will flow to ODE properly. Diana had a question, then I see we have some chats.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
You have them promoted before they're withdrawn.
We didn't hear her question.
Okay, the question was, how do you promote them but withdraw them?
Okay.
And my answer is you have them promoted before you withdraw the student.
Okay. Okay, do you want to hear the chat?
Yes.
Okay, so I just put it in the chat so everybody could have it if they wanted it. But the EMIS manual says the cause results for same age, comma, typical developing peers enrolled in the same preschool special education program are not reported to EMIS. The resident district is required to submit the cause assessment records for students enrolled in these programs. That's a whole separate. So Lori says she takes care of the districts entering the data for her districts that if you have with the Licking County ESC. So Shelley's would not be reported if they're not.
But they are
Right.
reportable because they are a career center that are educating preschool. That's what ODE said 3 years ago. So that's what I need to verify with ODE.
But
That career
but
centers
Shelley,
that have an early childhood education program, that they still have to report those preschool students.
but it would be the resident district
No,
reporting. Yeah,
the resident
the
district
JVS
reports-
doesn't report.
the resident district reports the assessment records if there are any, but her question is, do career centers have to
Oh.
report the preschool students?
Oh, I thought she meant the cause assessment.
No, she's
Oh,
asking, do they have
oh.
to report preschool, period?
Oh, I thought she meant just, I came in on the cause. Okay.
Yeah, no, Lori took it as she was asking a question about the assessments, but it was,
Oh, okay.
do they have to report at all?
Okay, well, I was looking up, do they have to report the cost? Okay, I will look that up then. Thank you. But that's all that was in the chat. Okay.
Okay. There is a report in the ad hoc reports called FS standing attendance detail. And it will show if there is a missing FS standing record. It'll show a blank EMIS situation. Verify all your students are coded correctly.
FS standing attendance detail.
Yeah, it's on your checklist and it's on your PowerPoint. Verify your percent of time. And since this is the end of the year, all of this should be done. But if you've had new students, make sure they're coded correctly. But this is something that should have been done throughout the year. County of residence. This is used for the casino count, and they took a snapshot on May 7th of all students' county of residence, and that's what they will use for the casino count distribution.
And that's not correct,
I don't remember. Annie, the question is casino account, does that apply to career centers? And I don't think so, because I think it goes to resident districts. But I think, I'm not sure the answer on that one.
Can I go back one for a second? For the percent of time,
Yes.
what is there an issue? Because every year I have so many CCPs that in the beginning of the year, I always forget that I gotta go in and change all those kids back to 100%, get rid of all of that. Can I do it like the last day of school? This year, back to 100%, because technically they're out of their CCP courses, most of them. But
The question is, I have a student who's CCP this year and they're not going to be CCP next year. Can I change them after the last day of school to be back to my building 100%? That will change. Each change on an FS standing record recalculates the percent of time, and it could potentially cause some FTE adjustment errors on rounding and percents over 100. And you really want to show what the student was accurately and what they were accurately as of the last day of school is that they were college credit plus. So that is a long answer to say, no, don't change them now.
You can do it after you do that thing you do, right?
Well, that would be in the 21-22 school year. After I do fall initialization is when you should go in and make those changes.
When is that usually?
I do fall initialization shortly after July 4th. So it'll be probably the, I don't think it'll be the first or second. I believe it will probably be the 6th or 7th. But I will have to double check with state support to see when the person who flips our flag is not on vacation.
Yeah, that raises another question, if you don't mind, real quick. Maybe somebody can give me advice on what they, because I just got an email today from Malta County. On the 26th, a student was released from Malta County, and he's gonna be in 9th grade next year. So obviously he rolled up with the 471 EMIS situation and, you know, our status for next school year. And I don't want to change it for this year because our last day of school is the 27th. So I leave it because that's how we ended the year. But a district our size, and it's gonna happen a lot between now and even July 6th. It's either somehow I gotta create a list or try to catch every one of them, or I do what I don't like to do, but I went into next school year, because they're doing schedules now. I went into next school year, changed it to a Zima situation in March, unchecked. I unchecked, or I check marked.
Exclude from fall
I
initialization,
don't
yeah.
like doing that, but I'm afraid this kid's gonna come to school the first day of school without schedule. If I don't do it.
The question is, if a student comes back, say from Multi-County after our last day of school, but will be in our high school the next school year, I don't want to change them because they came back after our last day of school. So the last day of school, I want to leave them in the current school year how they were. What is the issue if I would go ahead and update the FS standing in the 21-22 school year now to change their situation so that the high school can schedule them and so that I don't forget to update their record. Make sure you do check exclude from fall initialization and make sure that anything on the FS standing that would need to be updated was updated. If you modify the FS standing, the FD, or the FN records in the 21-22 school year, you must uncheck the, or you must check the exclude from fall initialization on the corresponding record that you modified. That way, when I do the fall initialization, it won't either produce an error or undo what changes you did by resetting them back to what they were in the 2021 school year. So that is something, and it's probably later on in one of the slides, but that is something that I do need to remind you of. If you modify, and let your buildings know, if they modify the FS, FD, or FN tabs of the student profile in the 21-22 school year, they must check exclude from fall initialization on those records.
Is there a report that you can pull in the 21-22 school year that would show who you marked? Or can you just let it go?
Kathy's question is there a report that will show who you have marked in the 21-22 school year, or can you just let it go? If you let it go, it will cause errors and it will be on the report that I will give you. Or in some cases, it may just go ahead and update it and put it back to what they were.
Okay, I mean the check mark. Do I have to go back later and uncheck that check mark?
Yeah, that's what I'm
On that kid?
No, you don't have to go back later and uncheck the check mark because the check mark is only for that school year.
So when, in
It'll be checked in 21, 22. And then in, when they're promoted to 22, 23, they won't be checked because that's 22, 23. So if you check it in 21, 22, that's not a problem. It's only saying when I run full initialization for 21, 22, exclude that record from updating.
Does that include addresses and that kind of stuff?
The question is, does that include anything on any tabs of the student profile that is not the FSFD or FN? No, it does not include any tabs of the student profile that is not the FS, FN, or FD tabs. The only three that my program updates are the FS, FD, and FN tabs. Fiscal year student began 9th grade, should have already been done. And then as you have new students enroll in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, those should be done as the students enroll. It does cause an Uncle EMIS error if it's not filled in. So if you have any that are showing as errors, then make sure those are updated. Disadvantagement. Even though all students had free lunch this year, and even though all students will have free lunch next year, you still need to mark disadvantagement accurately, because there are a lot of things like these latest round of EBT cards that are being sent out are for valid applications for the 2021 school year. Or if they're under a community eligibility program. So if they don't have that application in and they're not marked as disadvantaged, then you aren't, just because everyone's getting free lunch, you don't mark everyone as free lunch unless they qualify because of the application or your district or building is under the CEP option. So it is important to mark disadvantage accurately. And it also affects your E-rate percentage, and it affects other things. So the disadvantage does need to be marked accurately. Diana.
We had a lot that did not fill it out, so our disadvantage rate went way down. Has anybody else had that issue?
This is what I heard on the rules. I heard that if they were in 1920 disadvantaged, then they're still disadvantaged in 2021 unless they submitted an application and were denied, which really messes.
Okay.
Sad for the parents.
The question is, I have a bunch of students that did not fill out the application in 2021. So our disadvantage rate went way down. Our other districts having that issue. And Kathy said that she has heard that if they were disadvantaged in 1920, they're still disadvantaged in 1920 or 2021 unless they fill out their application and are denied. So
I didn't understand any of this, so I sat in on a Zoom meeting.
And
Agriculture.
this is from one of the EBT Zoom meetings with Department of Agriculture. Is that what you're?
Right. I will dig out the PowerPoint that was presented and try to send it to everyone.
Okay. Kathy's going to send the PowerPoint to everyone. It'll be in a couple days before she can get to it, but she will try to find that PowerPoint and send it out to everyone.
Yeah, I learned
Diana?
a lot.
The second thing relating to that, my food service person told me that there will not be a free reduced lunch application this coming year. There will be another option. And what they said in that meeting was it would come from the superintendent's office. This is what the food service people are saying. I did get the 2-page sample. So I can send that out to anybody if you want to see it.
I would like. to see-
Diana said there are changes for 21-22, that there will not be a free reduced lunch application as in past, but there will be a approval or acceptance letter for disadvantagement to be administered by the superintendent's office, and she will send it to the LACA EMIS coordinators list so that everyone has a copy of that
Was said in the food
sample.
service meeting. Really? It's because they're free and reduced next year.
Everyone's free next year.
Everyone's free, yes. Correct. Which is, so that's, I guess, why they're doing this 2-page thing. So that we can still mark them.
I think it'll be the same rules as this year.
I
And
think
how
it
they
will.
rolled up and if they were disadvantaged. Well, we pull direct cert too and mark our kids that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll pull one of those two and let them roll up.
There's a lot more to come on this, I'm sure.
It's-
But Diana will send out the email that she received as being the superintendent's secretary, so that all of you have this sample.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'll send it to everybody.
Verify race ethnicity for your newly enrolled students. Make sure all of that's coded correctly. Home language and native language. The native language is what is used for the SSID. The home language is required for English learners and immigrant students, and that is the language spoken at home. Shelley, did you have a question?
Really fast through that last one, and I just have a note that I would like for you guys to figure out for me. When I do transfers from some of the homeschools to CTEC, sometimes, and it's just certain districts, I don't get, the ethnicity doesn't come over, the race doesn't come over. Like Johnstown 6th graders never put 7th grade next year. It is the strangest thing. Yeah, it's the strangest.
Send a help desk ticket with all of the items that are not being transferred on your bulk transfers correctly. And because it could be something on one of the registration default forms or something somewhere internal that it's not matching over. That has to do with bulk transfer, and it doesn't have to do with EMIS reporting.
Right, I just
So,
wanted to-
yeah, and I don't know the answer offhand, so post a help desk ticket on that one, student services. And I'm gonna sidebar, I appreciate people sending in help desk tickets. It helps tremendously, but about 50% of the ones that you send to the EMIS team are actually student information questions, because the fields, if the fields for your maintaining the data is within student information, send it to student information. If it's data collector or reports or something that's actually an EMIS reporting question, send it to EMIS help, because I'm selecting the category other, because instead of reclassifying it to student information, because this is actually a student information question, because it has to do with how students coded on the FS standing or an error in one of the student information processes. And so,
But sometimes you think that you're sending it to the right one, like I think it's a student services, and they're like, oh, that's a Mary question. I'm like, no, it's, so you never know who the heck you're supposed to be sending it to.
well, I'm on that team, I'm on both teams. And so I will see them, the question is, well, if I send it to student information, they say, oh, well, that's a Mary question. Well, I'm on both the student information and the EMIS teams. The two teams I'm not on is special ed or progress book or grade book. So don't send it to special ed or grade book if it has anything to do with EMIS reporting, but if it's something that I'm fixing this in student information, and this is where the question is, send that to the student information help. Or if it is a report or a data collector issue, send it to the, or another issue, send it to the EMIS help.
And there is not a special ed help. It's under grade book, which is kind of crazy.
Okay, there's not a
But,
specific, but it's under grade book.
But also, if it gets to the student services, if it gets to that student information team, they will assign it to the right person, no matter what. So if you send it to that one,
Yeah,
sometimes if you send it to EMIS and it's not EMIS, you know, we can get it to the right person, but it's just quicker to
yeah.
send it to
Sometimes
student.
if you send it to EMIS and it's not EMIS, we have to reassign it.
So
But
it's,
Annie and I are on both student information and EMIS teams. So if we see them and we see it's a question that we need to address, we hop in and assign it to ourselves, or it will get assigned to us if we aren't quick enough.
right.
Update CTE program of concentration. And the definition changed 2 years ago. There is a lot more information in the checklist than what I have on here. They've completed at least 2 workforce development program courses in a single career tech education program. And you report this only if you are providing that program. If CTEC is providing the program, they're reporting it. You, as a resident district, don't. Shelley.
Can I ask them to add one thing on here? When you say 2 courses in a single career tech education program, it must be a VT, VN, or VP. It cannot be a V3.
The first bullet completed at least 2 approved workforce development program courses in a single career tech education program must have a curriculum value of VT, VP, or VN. They cannot be a V3 or a VA.
And not family consumer science or CBI.
And as always, family consumer science and CBI do not qualify as workforce development programs. That has been the rule for 30 years or more. Manually update the FN attributes or use the CTE management page to update by class. And there are some reports, and I'm not going to get into the reports. We address them in our CTE trainings. But there are some reports that may list students multiple times with multiple potential programs. That's because the course that they are taking could qualify them for multiple programs. There's not any clear way for ODE to be able to determine, oh, well, if they're a Northridge student, it's definitely a A0, because they don't know if you have an A0 or an A1 or an A2 or an A3 or an A4 program. Shelley.
There are 2 new reports that they can look at, the CTAC 102 and CTAC 103. And that will tell you if you are missing a concentrator or if you have one marked that is unexpected.
And Shelley did remind everyone of the 2 reports, and these are in the staff course collection because it's where all the career tech courses are. The CTAC 102 and the CTAC 103 that shows students that are calculated to be a concentrator or students that are reported as a concentrator and ODE doesn't think they should have been. So review those reports and make changes as necessary. And on the one that calculates if they should be a concentrator. Even if you disagree with it, ODE is counting them as a concentrator unless you can prove and do an appeal otherwise. And one of the things that we found when people were looking at these reports last summer and last fall was 2 years ago, a course was reported as a full year course that was actually a semester course. And so what should have been a half credit was reported as a full credit. And so that gave the student the credit, but it shouldn't have given them the credit, but that's how it was reported. So there's nothing you can do because that is what you reported. So that's why it is very important when you're looking at your staff course collections, you are looking at all of your reports, you're looking at all of your courses. You aren't just saying, okay, there's no errors, I'm fine. There's a song I listen to Christian radio, and there is a song that the first part of the chorus is, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, but I'm not. Just because you don't have any errors, it may not be fine. Okay, task 13. We are bypassing because that doesn't apply for year end. They've changed the name. It's no longer limited English proficiency. It is English learner. Make sure you are looking at your students coded as an L and an S and change them appropriately when they meet the deadlines to change to a Y. When they change from an L to an S, from a first year, our first 180 days in US schools to a second 180 days to US schools, to they're more than 2 terms of 180 days in US schools, and they go to a Y, make sure you are changing them appropriately. That's really important. The reclassification date is no longer required. Verify your English learner students. Update your retained status. This is, or retained students. This is, if school starts tomorrow, would the student go on to the next grade level? If the answer is no, the grade level next year should be the same as the current grade level. If the student has already been promoted to the next building, if they're going to be in the same building next year that they're currently promoted to, and you believe the student is going to do something over the summer to be promoted, you can leave them there. But if you have a student who crossed buildings and you don't think that they are going to be promoted to that next building, whack them out of the 21-22 school year and have them re-promoted once you change their grade level next year to the correct grade level. Change it both on the general tab and on the FN tab, so that that student will get promoted. Happy.
Sorry. Just make it run that promotion again for the high school. Like, I have seniors that I thought were graduating that, and they're not. So I had to go switch the thing from grad to 12 so they get promoted up. Do I need to contact Megan to do that, or does she just do it?
She will do it. I don't know if she has a regular schedule on when she does it, but you can always drop a message and say, hey, I had to make some changes. Will you run the promotion again for the high school?
Okay.
I think she usually does it on the buildings.
She will do it one more time, like the second or third week of June.
Yeah, I was gonna say she has a final one. I would just shoot her an email and ask her when that will be.
Tammy asked for the date, and Megan said the 18th of June will be the target final promotion. Also verify there are sync reports that will show students who are in next year that are withdrawn in this year. There are reports that will show students that are active in this year but are not in next year. If you had a student who you had withdrawn and then found out that, oh no, they should be a resident attending elsewhere, and you reactivated them, verify and make sure that the grade level next year on the general tab and the EMIS grade level next year on the FN tab are not still double asterisks. Unless you modify them, they will be double asterisks, and that will keep them from being promoted. This does not have anything directly to do with the retention reporting that you do in the fall. And the retention reporting has been changed to only be for third grade. The showing a student as retained now is for all grades, including your graduates who didn't graduate.
This year, like, if my 12th graders that are staying 12th graders, I have to put that retained.
You have to do what I just described.
Okay.
For your 12th graders who are not graduating, you change the grade level next year to be a 12
Okay.
or a 13 or a 23, whatever is appropriate.
But when
The retention,
the
next
retention,
year you don't report them.
only third, okay, thank you.
Update the military student identifier. This is also reported by Career Centers, JVSDs. If a parent or legal guardian has been an active member of the Armed Forces or National Guard, and they do have an option for reserves, and that is if at any time during the school year. So the parent was active duty and he left the military in November. You still report it. It was at any time during this year. School started in August. He retired from the military September 15th. You still report it. It was any time during the school year. Update the admitted from and withdrawn to IRNs. You should be doing this as you admit and withdraw students on a regular basis. Run your R101A to verify all of your students and their demographic information is there and accurate. Run your student verification. Your building should be running this frequently. You should be running this frequently. The screen is interactive. You can click on the error and it will take you to the screen and you can correct. The attending building next year, I think that's what the field is, that you started receiving May 1st, that is for any student who has not been promoted to next year that should be promoted to next year. If you have not had your elementaries promoted, every student in your elementary is going to have that error. Correct it by having Megan promote. Don't correct it manually. Okay, the next three tests are only for community schools. And the first one is the updated Flix IRN. It's if a student came in and didn't attend a public school last year, what was their public district of residence last October? The transportation is during the first full week of October. Were they transported is so for how far. And the biggest one, address, contact. I know all of you are probably out of school or very close to being out of school. And all of you, I'm meaning my community schools. Hopefully all address changes or contact changes were made prior to your physical last day of school. Any address change that needs to be made now that was in effect prior to the last day of school, we will have to work with you in order to get that address change made, because the contact collection will not pull after your physical last day of school. Calendars, exception days, and attendance patterns. Verify your sub-calendars. If you extended your school year, make sure that the sub-calendar was extended with the correct last day of school. The master calendar was updated, but make sure the sub-calendars are also updated accurately. Make sure your hours per day are entered accurately for the number of hours of instruction minus lunch. Make sure the attendance pattern on the calendar, if it's not your default calendar, is defined, and then that attendance calendar is attached to the students accurately on their FD record. If you have a senior calendar, because your seniors get out prior to other students in your district, make sure that all of your seniors are attached to that senior calendar, because when you withdraw them, the last day of required attendance per the senior calendar with the power withdraw, if they're not attached to that senior calendar, then it's not going to give you full funding for that student, because it'll see you're withdrawing them on September 20 or May 21st, and the calendar they're attached to goes through May 27th. So that will cause issues, and you will need to verify your FTE detail on your students to make sure that all of your students that should be funded at 100% are being funded at 100%.
I'm having a brain issue right now. So when I would that power withdraw my students, it's the last day that they were in session, right? Not the day after. It's the day
Right.
after.
The question is, when I power withdraw my students, it is the last day that they're in session, and that is correct. And we'll get to that when we get to the power withdraw step. There is a flag on the FS standing for the home district of a satellite student. When that is checked, the student will be counted 100% for HB 410 calculations, because they are physically in that building all the time. They're just taking courses that are owned by the CTEC, or the Career Center, so they're appointed to the Career Center part of the day, but they're physically in that building, so they will be calculated for HB 410 as though they're attending 100%. Their attendance and absence will be reported per their percent of time. Okay, student acceleration and third grade reading guarantee. The acceleration record is required for students on a written acceleration plan. If they're taking an assessment in the accelerated grade level, you indicate that and also indicate the subject area. Here is the confusion level. What do you put in the level on acceleration? If this is the first time the student was accelerated, how many grades was the student accelerated? And that is what you put in for the level. If this is not the first time the student was accelerated, and they're still only accelerated the same number of grade levels, you put in a 0. Okay. We have a 4th grader who is taking a 5th grade math. And this is the first time they were accelerated. They were newly put on a written education plan and or a written acceleration plan, and they are accelerated in math. Then you would put, they're taking the 5th grade math, and you would put the acceleration level as 1. Because this is the first time they were accelerated in math. Well, the student actually was put on the written acceleration plan last year as a 3rd grader, and they were accelerated to 4th grade math last year. And this year in 4th grade, they're still taking 5th grade math. So you're still putting in that they are taking the 5th grade assessment and they're taking the math assessment, but the level count is 0 because this is not the first time the student was accelerated in that subject. There is a report, FB Acceleration Detail Report, that will help you verify that you have the correct information in.
Yeah, but that's not gonna tell us who we reported last year, is it, as a 0 or a 1?
No, but you could go back. The question is, but that report won't tell me who I reported last year, will it? And no, but you can go back to last year, or you could potentially run it for last year and this year, because you can change the year, I think, and run it for last year to get last year's acceleration. The reading diagnostic should have been done for grades 1 to 3 by September 30, and for kindergarten by November 1. And then within 30 days of enrollment for any student, grades K to 3. Report if they are on track, not on track, required but not assessed, or exempt from diagnostic. Every student should have been assessed. If you had a remote learner that chose not to be assessed, they should be reported as required but not assessed. If you have a remote learner that you just didn't assess, they should be reported as required, not assessed. If they are not on track or borderline, then you should put them on a REMP. But that REMP had to be written within 30 days of receipt of the diagnostic. So you can't wait until you get the 3rd grade ELA back to determine the ones that didn't meet the ELA. Oh, I got to put these on a REMP, because you've already passed the deadline of when those students should have been on a REMP. So when the diagnostic is done, then they need to, if they were borderline or any question, go ahead and put them on a REMP. So we should be on the safe side and just put everyone on a REMP. No, that is red flags. ODE is seriously questioning, right, you are seriously giving every student, because when you put the rep codes on, you are putting the specific type of remediation that student is receiving. And you're telling ODE that every student is receiving every one of those specific types of remediation. That really draws red flags. Yes, but I don't want to be dinged on my report card with the number of students that didn't meet promotion rate but weren't on a rep. Well, that's above our pay grade. Okay, student missing and withdraw records. Student withdraw override record. If you have SSIDs that are on the missing student report, they withdrew last year, but they were not reported as withdrawn, then report them in the withdraw override record. This record is also used to modify your graduation cohorts. If you have documented proof that a student that you reported as a dropout student actually wasn't a dropout student and went to out of state or non-public or homeschooling or something else, and you reported that they were either a dropout or they went to another public school and that other public school never reported them, then you can use this withdraw override record. And this record will also be reported as part of the graduate collection, but you have to specify on the record if it is to be reported in period G. If you have a student who was here last year, left over the summer, the building removed the record out of the current school year, they're showing up on your missing list, you don't have to add them back in unless they came this year. You could put them in the summer withdrawal record and report them that way with just their SSID and their withdrawal date and code instead of having to actually re-enroll the student. Okay, gifted reporting. I'll do a couple more slides and then I'll take a short break. Update student gifted records. The identified value rolls over from year to year. For a current year, we're updating the screened, assessed, and served. By now, you should all have created your gifted rules and run the gifted mass update to create the records for this year. One of the things I need to remind you of is the state considers the mandatory assessment of ACT or SAT to all 11th grade students, depending on what test that your district says that you're giving, as screening. So you have to write a gifted rule for 11th grade to indicate if you gave the ACT, all 11th graders are screened in math, reading, writing, and science, and SAT, math, and reading and writing. If for some reason a student didn't take the test, then you would go in to their gifted record after you ran the mass update and remove the screened for those areas. Reminder, when you pull the default rule over, don't check override existing. You only check the override existing when you do a specific grade level rule so that you catch everyone that's in that grade level. The question is, well, there were two different dates that they could give the ACT. And so some of the kids are at one date and some are at the other. You can only add, the date isn't reported. So I would only add it with one date because you can't add multiple dates on a screening record. You can have a different date for each subject, but you can't have multiple dates for the same subject. There's a gifted missing report that lists any students that doesn't have a gifted record. If you have a bunch of kids, or even any kids, you can run your gifted rule or gifted maths update with the default rule and do not check override existing. Or you can go into that student gifted record and hit save and it will create the record. Don't forget to mark any student who was served as gifted in the subject area that they were served in. So let's say you have a student who was identified in superior cog and they're in a math class or they're receiving gifted services in math. You don't mark they're served in math. You mark that they're served in superior cog because that's the area that they are identified in. You have to mark the area that they are, where they're served has to align with where they're identified. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 10:20, 10:40 or 10:45. Okay, let's go ahead and come back because we still have a lot to go through. I have an hour and 15 minutes and I still have 2 complete presentations and quite a few more steps on this one that's not done. Okay, special ed records. Make sure all events dated 7/1 to 6/30, 7/1/20 to 6/30/21 are entered. Newly enrolled students, preschool suspected of disability, all of their events, even those dated prior to 7/1/20, need to be reported. Last year, we had a lot of students that their events didn't get reported. And last year was a very interesting year. But a lot of their spring events didn't get reported. They may have been done, but they never got to who needed to get them in for reporting. And so you had to do NIEP. For those students that you have an NIEP where the identifier is saying it's because their event wasn't reported, on their event this year, you need to put the 09. I'm not out of compliance. I just didn't report the event last year. That doesn't go on last year's event that never got reported. That goes on this year's event. Also, if you have a student who enrolled, had a disability, your district hasn't transferred the IEP and the ETR yet, but you're serving that student, put an NIEP in to indicate that they're a transferred student and we're working on the IEP, but we're serving them so that you will get the weighted funding. Keep checking your FTE adjustment report throughout the summer because that report will change. If you have students who had an IEP event that the event date, end date was say May 14th, if that new event did not get entered in, then May 29th, that student will show up on your FT adjustment as not receiving weighted funding because there's no IEP event. That will hopefully help you catch all of these students who had events that the people haven't given you the information to enter, or they haven't entered their information. Please keep up on this. I know last year was a unique, putting it mildly, year. And a lot of things were missed that should have been reported, but we can't let excuses keep us in that way. Keep after your special ed people. Keep after looking at your FT adjustment. The reason I said it won't show up until the 29th is because ODE gives you a funding period of 14 days. It's not a 14-day gap, so you can't date the event the 29th if it expired on the 14th. They're just giving you 14 days to get that event in so that you don't lose funding. When you do get it in, your funding will go back retro and you'll recoup everything that you would have missed, but the events have to be in.
Student information window closes a lot sooner this year.
The student information window closes in July. I want to say the 14th, but don't hold me to that date.
17th.
It's
I believe it's the 17th.
the 17th. Okay. Annie said the 17th. So I knew it was right around there in July. I knew the 14th wasn't a Friday because May 14th was a Friday. So, but you're right. The student information date closes normal time this year. And as of now, there is no reason for ODE to have any extensions. And the report card dates are the same as in previous years, and there is no reason for any extensions at this time. So student information must be entered in, and the final date to get your student information in is July 17th. Most of you work all summer, but the people that supply that information.
Correction, that's the 14th, sorry.
Oh, it
I
is the
just
14th.
looked.
Okay.
I was wrong. And
Okay.
that's a Thursday, I believe. It's not even a Friday, is it? No, it's a Wednesday.
That's what I was thinking. The 14th is a Wednesday, and it closes on the 14th. So yes. If you have vacation planned the first couple of weeks of July, communicate to your people, hey, I have to have everything in and corrected by X date because I will not be here, or I will have 2 days to verify everything when I come back, and this needs to be in.
Okay, I do have to say, it is very hard to say the student collection is closing on the 14th when I'm still gonna be asking them about assessments for this year in August. So how would you suggest you communicate that? They're not gonna understand.
The question is,
I did communicate that at my special ed meeting and let them know that you would probably be asking for this information even a week before to be completed because
Okay.
you need time to look at all of the errors.
Annie communicated to her special ed directors at her meeting a week ago that the deadline for submission was July 14th, and that you would be asking them at least a week ahead of time to have all of their stuff in and get errors to them. Kathy's question was, how do you make them give you information when the period is closing in July, when you're still asking them for assessment information in August? Because a lot of the assessment collections don't close until August 6th.
They don't get it.
I suggest just making sure that the director understands it affects funding. And they can deal with
Figure it out.
They
If
can deal with their people.
the suggestion is, if you have a curriculum or testing director or assistant superintendent or someone who has more weight and authority than what you as an EMIS coordinator sometimes have in communicating to people, make sure that they are aware of the timelines and that they communicate out the importance of, this affects funding, this affects our report card, this affects, and everything that it does affect. That, yes, the assessment windows may be open until August because the state in their infinite wisdom allowed testing windows to be open a little bit later, so it put you in a little bit of a bind. So assessment information can still be reported, but the information on the student that affects the funding, that closes in July. And so my funding closes in July. My special ed, I have no excuse. My special ed has to be done in July. Yes, we can still do assessments. We can still do courses, but special ed has to close in July. And so communicating, these are the timelines. This affects funding. This affects accountability. I don't make the rules. This is ODE's timelines. And I think that's about all that you can do. The other thing I want to point out on the screen, people miss this every year. And, oh, well, we didn't put it on the IEP, so we have to do our IEP or an amended IEP to put this on. You're still going to get a fatal error on the one IEP that doesn't have it. If the student is going to turn 14, the secondary planning element must be filled in. You can't just leave it asterisk. Oh, we forgot to do it, so we have to do an AIP. But that's not going to correct your error. You're still getting a fatal error unless you fix it on that IEP event.
But you won't be able to fix it on that IEP event if you didn't, if when they did the RIEP, they didn't.
But you won't get funding because that fatal error will never go away.
It will
Even
go
if there's an
away
AIEP.
if it's on the AIEP, it does go away.
It
But
does.
if they do another RIEP, it doesn't. But I just put a ticket in about this, and it will get funded if the student is not turning 14, like if they do the AIEP before the student turns.
Okay,
14.
so if they do the AIEP before the student turns 14, then the record will get funded. But if they don't do if it's not on the RIEP and they don't do the AIEP until after the student turns 14, then that RIEP will never get funded. That fatal error will never go away.
This is also just a critical, it's not a fatal.
Oh, it's a okay.
Yeah, so
Annie
it
said it's a
doesn't,
critical, not a fatal.
it doesn't cause the student not to go. That was
Okay.
also the answer. So it's a critical.
It's still an error, and I know how you guys like errors.
Yes, it is still an error, and that
Andy, or Mary, I know the question or the answer to this, but I have to ask it because I'm still asking. An ETR expired. She wants to do an NIEP. They're still serving. We can't, can we?
The question is, the ETR expired and they want to do an NIEP because they're still serving the student. First off, the NIEP is not affiliated with the ETR. The NIEP is associated with the IEP. So is the IEP still in effect? If the IEP is still valid, then you don't need to do an NIEP. Just get the ETR done as soon as possible. There is no NETR or any type of, ooh, I forgot to do the ETR. They may get dinged on their special ed audit, but it will not affect their EMIS reporting.
Yeah, well, if they don't have a disability,
Do they have to remove the disability if the ETR expired?
I don't, that's a tricky one. I did have that in probably a year ago. I can put that in. I can ask Kaylin Kraft, but
Annie will double check. Annie will double check if the ETR expired, are you supposed to remove the disability? So Annie will double check and get back. That's Diana that asked that question.
okay. I know that I've asked this before, but it was before Kaylin Kraft was the data quality manager, so.
But as far as doing an NIEP, that has nothing to do with the ETR.
Right, I agree.
So you can't do an NIEP because the ETR expired. But the real question is, the ETR expired, are you supposed to remove the disability? And if so, what do you do if you're still serving the student? So that is the real question.
Yes, I got that question, so I will.
So the special ed guru is going to take that back to the special ed gurus at ODE. Okay.
You can't hear my facial expressions, right?
I thought you would like that. Okay, task 32. Create the FE student graduation requirement record for your special ed students. Indicate if they're exempt from graduation requirement records. It's required each year per their IEP. The date on the FE record must match a valid IEP event date. It will turn colors other than red if it's valid. If it's invalid, I believe it'll be red. You have to match. It's not required unless the student is exempt or was exempt and is no longer exempt. You can run the verify special education. You can run it for errors only. The one disclaimer on the errors only, it is only looking to see if a student with a disability has a event. It's not looking to see if they have the valid events. It's only looking to see if there is a event. You can verify either the grad events or the grad required records, and you can run an export for a date range to verify the events entered. That would be your better option. Run the export for July 1 through June 30, and it will pull all of your events and have your special ed go through the list to make sure that every student and all of their events are in there. Okay, graduate end of year. This information is actually reported in the period G. Part of it overlaps. So we're going through all of the graduate information in this checklist. It's duplicated in the graduate checklist, so you don't forget it. The JVS does not report graduation date or diploma type. The diploma is issued by the district, but you still have to withdraw all of your seniors. You can do that either with a 41 or a 99. It doesn't matter. But the resident district that is issuing the diploma has to report all of their graduates as a 99 if they gave them a diploma. Bulk update graduation date. Now, on the bulk update of the graduation date, I recommend doing an ad hoc, because when you do the bulk update, it's either all, and you do it based on grade, it's an all or nothing. So it will pull all seniors, but I have 15 or 20 or 50 that didn't graduate. So then you would have to go back and you would have to manually fix all of those. So it's easier if you have an ad hoc of all of your seniors and then run the graduation update or the bulk graduation date update on that ad hoc. Do not overwrite existing. So if you have someone who you have already withdrawn as a graduate and entered in a graduation date because they completed and received, maybe they were a last year's non-grad and they finished up in November, or they graduated at the end of first semester and you put in their graduation date at that point, you don't want to overwrite what's there. And then once you have updated the graduation date, you can do the bulk update of the diploma type, and you can select the graduation dates that you want to update, and you can select the type that you want to default everyone to. There are more than just one diploma type. So you might want to do everyone as regular and then have your lists of who should be something other than regular.
Mary,
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question about the graduation date. Are we supposed to be using the last day that the students, the last day of school for the students?
The last day of required attendance for the seniors. So if your seniors get out 3 days prior to everyone else, they should be on a calendar that indicates that as their last day, and that is the date you should use. You don't use the, well, no. Last year, because last year was so weird, they said the graduation date should be the last day of required attendance. Typically, the graduation date would be the day that you held graduation. The reason why last year they said otherwise was because there were some graduations that didn't take place until September, and that was crossing fiscal years, and so that was causing an issue. So what I was thinking of was the power withdrawal. If your graduation date is prior to June 30, I would say use whatever date graduation was held for the graduation date. For the power withdrawal, which we'll get to in a couple minutes, you would use the last required day of attendance for seniors.
Okay, so we have, our students have their last, what we call their last full day, like on May 14th. And then they come back, and I don't even know if all of them have to come back or just some of them. They come back to do exams like on the 17th and 18th. So do I use the 18th as that withdrawal date, or do I use the 14th since it was their last full day?
What does your calendar say?
Our calendar says the 14th is their last day, but I'm wondering if I need that to be different too.
Do they have enough hours? If you have their calendar date as the 14th, will they have enough hours? If the 17th and 18th are required days of attendance, I would say that you should have those days indicated on your calendar, and then you would have non-attending days in between time. Actually, the 14th was a Friday, and then 17th and 18th would be Monday and Tuesday, so there wouldn't be any non-attending days. I would find out if I would say if the 17th and 18th are exams, if it is required attendance, then it should be the 18th.
So exams are required, but for instance, someone may have an algebra exam and someone else does not. So they may come in on the 18th only for that algebra exam.
That's a district policy decision that I cannot answer.
Okay.
The biggest thing is, would you have enough hours for your seniors if their last day was the 14th? That's going to be the biggest thing, because it does affect funding.
Thank you.
The question is, what does happen if you don't have enough hours? I don't know the answer to that. Okay, grad only students. If the student should have graduated in 1920 and didn't, but didn't pass all assessments or do everything they need to do in order to graduate, if they didn't take and pass over the summer to be a summer graduate and didn't enroll, then you should withdraw them as a 75 with a summer withdrawal date. If they came back and they took the assessment so that they completed this year, if they were already in the 2021 school year, just update the FN graduate tab with the graduation date, the date that they passed the assessment to graduate and receive their diploma, and their diploma date. Leave the withdrawal code at 75. The student will be picked up in the S collection because that graduation date's on there. If they didn't, or if they graduated or completed in a previous year and they're not in this school year, then you would use the registration wizard to enroll the student as a non-attending graduate. There's additional fields on the FN tab to indicate the district IRN and year completed of when they completed graduation or course requirements. If the student should be reported as a summer withdrawal and is now on your missing student list, then add the student summer withdrawal record with the withdrawal date and code. Power withdrawal. This doesn't really perform a complete withdrawal, but it withdraws the pieces that needs to be withdrawn for reporting purposes. It enters the withdrawal date and code on the FS standing. Verify only graduates are listed. This is one that if you don't use an ad hoc, you can pick and choose who to power withdraw. Don't do this until you have your complete list of graduates finalized. Use the last day of attendance for seniors. The default is the last day of school, but you need to use the last date that's on the calendar that the seniors are attached to. And JVS, the question was asked, could you use 99? And David said you could use either a 41 or a 99.
With the power withdrawal with my satellite kids, I can use a power withdrawal for satellites, right? Because
Yes.
I withdraw at the end of the year.
Yes, yes, you can use the power withdrawal. Barb for Foxfire Intermediate, you can do that for them too. If there is a highest grade level and the students won't be coming back to your building next year, then you can power withdraw the highest grade in that building. And the same way with your satellites, you can power withdraw the ones that you know are not going to be returning.
I was wrong, because I have no idea if they'll ever come back.
Okay. As long as when they do come back, they're re-enrolled as a strict match and not duplicated records.
Mary Witness doesn't perform a complete withdrawal need.
I don't believe it puts the withdrawal on the admission history record.
So then how does that get there?
It doesn't have to get there. It just has to be on the FS standing.
I think it does.
Does it?
I think it does. because
Okay.
All my satellites, if I would go.
Okay.
there is a withdrawal
Because
there.
this is the information that I've been given by state support. And I don't know what things it, now, one thing it doesn't do, when you withdraw a student, it will drop what classes are out there. It does not drop the student schedule. I do know that. So that might be what it means by it doesn't do a complete withdrawal. Because it does update the records for reporting to show that the student is withdrawn. Okay, update seniors not graduating from your district. Residents attending elsewhere, withdraw them with a 41 to the district where they graduated from. Assessment only non-grad. If they met their course requirements, but they didn't pass all of their assessments, their grade level next year should be a 13. And I missed an update here. That should be update the 2021, actually the 21-22 school year if the student passes in the test over the summer and receives their diploma. Credit non-grad, grade level next year is a 12. And make sure the student gets promoted to next year. Special ed student deferring diploma. This is always controversy. If a special ed student is deferring their diploma, do not report them with a graduation date and type. Do not power withdraw them. Change them to grade level next year of 23 and promote them to the next grade level. When that grade 23 decides that they're done attending, withdraw them as a 99 and put in their graduation date and type at that time because they have already met graduation requirements.
Okay, say that again. So graduated 99, and the year they were actually, that they earned their diploma is what we use with the grade 23?
The date that they quit coming.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So the question was on a grade 23, I withdraw them as a 99 when they quit coming. What date do I use for the graduation date? And it would be the date they quit coming.
That's a weird time, isn't it? And it's not Wednesday.
It's only 11:15 and it's not Wednesday.
Is that a tornado or mess? Wasn't there some type
Oh,
of?
I didn't, there might be, we do it, I thought it was every Wednesday.
It didn't go off yesterday at noon. At least I don't remember it going off. Okay. District and building records. We have tornado sirens going off and hopefully it is a test and not that there is a tornado coming this direction.
You better take cover.
No rain in sight.
Okay. Update the district and building records. On the EMIS maintenance district and building information, I'm going backwards, the district test record. One record per grade with a non-state assessment. So if you gave, say, Otis Linden to your 2nd and 7th graders for gifted, then you would put in a district test record for 2nd grade and 7th grade. If you didn't test anyone, not using a state test, then you would add a record, say NT, none tested. The third tab is the building organization record. 1 record per building, IRN. This is where your PE performance measure is entered in. This is also where your PBIS information is entered in. I probably put the PS transition before and after 3rd birthday on the wrong record. I think that should have gone on the district. I put it on the building. I'm not sure if it's the district or the building record. On your PE performance measure, put in the information that applies for that building, for that grade span. So if you have a K-3 building, you would put in information that applies to the K2 and the 3-5 band that applies to that building. If you did not assess grade 3, then on that 3rd grade building, you would put the number of 3rd graders that there was no testing done for this band in this building. But you would leave the others blank. But then for your other grade bands, so for your K-2 grade band, you would put the information for the grade that was tested, but only in the limited, proficient, and not tested, but not the 4th one, the number of students in the band that, because this band wasn't tested in this building. You leave that one blank, but you put something in the other 3 or 4, however many there are. The PBIS information is cumulative in months, and it must be done for every building. District info. Education delivery model. You must have at least 1 record. If the whole district was the same model for the whole year with no exceptions, then you would have 1 record indicating either they were full remote, hybrid, or in person with your beginning day of school and the district IRN. When there were changes, you have to add a record with the date. And let's say the whole district was in person the first day of school, but then November 11th, the whole district went remote until after Thanksgiving because of COVID concerns. So you would add another record, November 11th, full remote. Then when they came back on December 1st, you would add another record, full in person. And then, well, we had a calamity day on February 10th, and we did full remote instead of giving the kids a day off. So you would add another record for February 10th, remote. And it was only a 1-day calamity day. So the 11th, you would add another record to show full in person. You get my drift? Is that making sense of the potential of, huh?
What do we do if there's a building?
Okay, the question is, what do we do if there was a building? Okay, the high school and the middle school and the elementary were full in person, but Stevenson had to go in quarantine. So Stevenson went remote for 2 weeks. So you would add a record just for Stevenson's IRN to show when they started remote And then you would add a record for Stevenson's IRN when they went back to full in-person.
What if it was one grade level?
You would do the same with the grade level. You would,
Be that specific?
you can, I believe the records can be that specific. If there is just one grade level that went remote, that you can add for, but you have to make sure that when you set them remote, that when that status changed, you add another record to show when they came back. But yes, I believe it can be down to the grade level. The hardware. Does your district provide hardware to any students in the district? If so, what grade levels do they provide hardware? If they provide hardware to every single student, 1st through 12th grade, then you would have one record district-wide with grades 1 to 12. If only the high school gives Chromebooks to 9 to 12, then you would do the high school with 9 to 12. If the high school and the middle school do from 7 to 12, then you would do the high school 9 to 12, you would do the middle school 7, 8. Now, right now, I am just talking at a district level. I'll get to the buildings or the individuals here in a few minutes. Connectivity. If the district is providing internet hotspot connectivity to mass people in the district, then you would put something at the district level. Otherwise, the connectivity question will be answered by program codes on specific students. Don't forget to enter the date required for students to be 5 for kindergarten, the count of homeschool resident students, the count of resident and non-resident, non-public students attending a public school in your, or a non-public school in your district that are eligible for, or that are evaluated and ineligible for special education services. And then, and I usually bug you in the fall for this, but if your preschool is provided by the ESC, do you allow them to pull the money or do you make them bill you? And that needs to be entered in. There are DN attributes for the start date of the assessment. Fall 3rd grade ELA, the spring ELA, and the spring math, science, and social studies. And this is supposed to be, say the state starts on March 22nd, and you can give it over a 2-week span, but the state window closes May 7th. And well, our 2-week span is actually going to be April 10th through April 23rd. And I don't know if those are real Monday through Friday dates. So you would put your start date as April 10th, because that's when your shortened window starts. Because of the expanded window this year for the missing lists, they're not really going by that date to determine the 2-week time period that your district is doing the assessments. And they may kick them on the missing list if the student is enrolled at any time during the assessment window. But these are fields that are now supposed to be filled in. Membership and program records. Verify and update membership records. There is a zillion membership codes. Because I don't talk about each type doesn't mean each type isn't required to be reported. If you have students who received intervention during the school year, that needs to be reported. RIPS, those codes need to be reported. Title I services, those codes need to be reported. Students in 7th through 12th grade that participate in extracurricular and intracurricular activities, sports, those need to be reported. But I don't go over every single one. I'm trusting that the districts are going through the checklist and they're reporting everything that is in the manual that needs to be reported. Staff member is required for some of the career tech codes, the 206 gifted services provided by the gifted intervention specialist, and the preschool 220-100 itinerant instruction. If the same instructor is providing that service for every student for that code in that building, you can go into SIS school membership codes, click on the group, and it will give you your list of codes. You can modify the code and make sure it is checked as staff member required, and then you can assign the staff members right there. So when you add that code to the student, the staff member is attached to the code. If a staff member is required and the staff member is not attached or it's not checked staff member required on the code, that will produce an error in the data collector. It is easy to fix if you have the staff member attached to the code by just checking that staff member required, and then it will pull the staff member when you do your transfer. There are new codes for English learners, and there are new codes for remote learner and connectivity. Any of your students who went against the norm, so if your normal for the district was we're 100% remote, you don't need any membership codes. But if your norm was in-person learning, either full in-person or hybrid, then any student who chose to do 100% remote was to specify the time period in which they did the remote. If they were, if they said, okay, I'm going to go remote for first 9 weeks, and then they decided to continue through the second 9 weeks, then you could either put in the first 9 weeks and the second 9 weeks, or you could do first semester. Let's say 2 weeks into the second 9 weeks, they decided, I'm going to go back in person. There is not a set hard and fast date of how long of a time period that you put that code on, but if it is the majority of the time period, then put the code on. If it's just slightly into the time period, then don't put the code. If the student was remote just because they had to do a 10-day quarantine, that is an ad hoc, and that is not considered to have a code on them.
So if we had someone that's there 9 weeks, remote,
Mm-hmm.
you put the membership in,
Yes.
you put the end date then on the membership?
You're putting in the membership that it was for the first 9 weeks. The question is, if we have a person who was remote for 9 weeks, do we put the end date on the membership? The start and end dates do not go on the memberships. They're not a required field, but the membership that you would select is the one that says first 9 weeks. So that is saying They were only remote the first 9 weeks. So there is, in that case, no reason to have a stop date.
So we're just using our judgment. It's 12 weeks.
Yeah, the question is, so we use our own judgment if it's 12 weeks or 13 weeks. And yes, just in that case, if it's less than half of second quarter or second 9 weeks, then I would say only put in the code for the first 9 weeks. If they went till Christmas and then came back after Christmas and there was still 2 weeks left of first semester, I would do the first semester because it's the majority of that time period. What do I do if my buildings did not keep records of the time periods that kids selected to do remote? Do the best you can. This year was a learning year, but this is going to be a permanent collection item. It was not in the COVID specific collection items. It is in the actual manual. So you have a grace for this year. We didn't know till the middle of the year that we were going to have all of the specific information. So we didn't collect all of the specific information. Okay, this year we'll let you slide. Next year, no excuse. The student has to specify a time period at the outset, and then that needs to be kept track of, and the codes need to be put in accordingly. Same way with one-off hardware, and same way with connectivity. Now, the hardware and the connectivity was as of March, but if they didn't actually collect it in March, but they had it at the beginning of the year that they knew you all had whatever, then report that. If the only records you have are what was collected a year ago March, do the best you can. Again, most important is the remote learner or the education delivery models, and then the hardware, and then the connectivity. So the order of importance that you have to have stuff for. Enter all of the codes on the students. You can enter codes by code or student. You can do it at the CIS school membership members level, or you can go to the specific student. Special ed services is on the special ed tab. It's not on the membership screen. You can copy membership codes from previous year if all of the students that are in that particular code from the previous year would still be in the code for the new year. I discourage that, but that option is there. And you can run an R102 to verify your memberships. The EMIS coordinator will run EMIS in verify mode. There's the option to verify your special education services, but those are not reported. Discipline. Discipline is to be reported all year. Now, you've always had to report all discipline that took place during the year, but now it's part of the first student collection, the mid-year student collection, the first SOES collection, the end of year SOES, and the end of year student collection. So it is reported at every collection. Run to schemas to verify your discipline data. All EMIS reportable discipline must be entered as an incident record in the discipline module. For every EMIS reportable action, there must be at least one EMIS reportable infraction. If your buildings are adding infraction codes, make sure they're also adding the appropriate EMIS reason on those codes so that when they are attached to a expulsion, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, etc., that is an EMIS reportable action, that those codes are pulled.
Okay, say that again. If you're adding an
Infraction in the discipline codes table, make sure you are adding the appropriate EMIS reportable reason to that infraction so that when that infraction is attached to an EMIS reportable discipline action, those codes are reported. Don't forget to enter victims of student violence. Yes, you have to have a student name if it is a student involved, but the name will not go to ODE. You select the category or the type of what the victim was. And then for discipline for grades PS to 3 for out of school suspension and possibly expulsion, I don't remember on that, probably expulsion. There is an additional PS discipline reason that you have to add for that. If those are not there, you will get errors when you run disk EMIS, and you will get errors in the data collector. Attendance reporting. Run add up EMIS, or run the EMIS attendance hour summary report. Save this report for your auditors. This is what they're looking at now, I think, since you're in hours. The FS standing attendance detail lists each student with their attendance hours, including excused and unexcused absence. And there's additional reports that you can run. Add up EMIS is run nightly, but it's also recommended that prior to transferring your S collection that you run add up EMIS in update mode to recalculate your attendance and absence. If you have students who are on a do not attend calendar, such as your ESC students in a county unit or districts placed in a non-pub, enter those attendance and absence hours on the FS attendance tab in the other entity fields. Don't put them in the school year fields, because if you do, when you run add up EMIS, it's going to wipe them out. Put them in the other entity fields, and then they won't get wiped out, and they'll still be there when you go to run, transfer your data the next time. Student truancy and excessive absence record. These records are automatically created for students that are considered habitually truant. You need to add information to the student absence intervention screen for a parent notification, habitual truant that violates court order, and absent intervention plan implemented. Preschool students do not need these. If you get an error that says duplicate, when you add a parent notification, that creates a record. There is also a way to add a manual record. Go to that tab that says manual record, and you will see that where that duplicate record is, and you can delete the duplicate record. Majority of attendance. Okay, don't everyone go ballistic. The assessment date range has been changed so that all students in all grade levels are Friday of the first full week of October through March 31st. No exceptions, no changes, which means major EMIS was changed to only have one tab that you submit one time. You don't have 4 tabs. You don't have courses you have to create. You don't have ad hocs you have to create. Once and done.
What took them so long?
I don't know. The question is, what took them so long? I don't know. Non-graduate course summary. This is a separate collection process in the data collector, but the update for it and the transfer is under the S collection for your student collection period. This calculates for grades 9 through 11, all course history that has credit earned for courses that are marked as high school credit. And it will divvy out the credit under the core subject area for credit as on the course tab of the courses they took. Run the course summary, verify, update as part of your student collection to populate the course summary record for the credit earned for your non-grads, your grades 9 through 11. This is part of the data exchange that they're doing in ODEX, and also looking at progress toward graduation. And so this will help make sure the students are on track to graduate with the correct credits in the correct areas. Also, as they complete College Credit Plus courses, enter in their credit hours earned. Data submission. We're getting close to the end of the first checklist. We still only have 2 to go. You as EMIS coordinator can run check EMIS and verify that all of the programs have been run in verify or update mode for all buildings. It'll also tell you if the program was run too early. And there's a history to indicate when you've done whatever. Transfer. I recommend you do a select all on transfers every single time. And then flat file for data collector, and then it will automatically transfer all of your data over to the data collector. Wait until the job has completed before you go in the data collector to start your collection. Because if you go into the data collector and start your collection before everything has been transferred, then you only have about half your information. You'll end up with some interesting records. And you know how to do the data collector, the collect and the prepare. Preview. Verify all your files are there. If you have less than a, or more than a, I think it's a 5% variance from the last time that you submitted on a record, a specific record type, you will have a red X beside that record type. I don't recommend you submit until you verify why you have that red X. It could be a very legit reason. Someone went in and cleaned up a whole bunch of records that shouldn't have been reported in the first place. Verify your missing student reports. As you make changes, you may do something that you think is minor, and it could cause a student to show up on the missing student report that hadn't been there before. When you open the missing student report, let me back up. Start your collection prepare. Then look at your level 1 validations and see if you have any fatal errors. I can't tell you the number of times that people have said, why do I have this student on my missing report? Well, is it because of missing data or because of fatal errors? Fatal errors? Did you look at your level 1 validations? No. Look at your level 1 fatal errors and correct those fatal errors. that will take care of your missing. You have two types of missing students. The first is missing data, and that's because the student's not in there at all. They were the end of last school year. They're not now. Why are they not being reported now? And if it was a SSID change, then you should have two FS standing records on the student. The first one has the wrong SSID. The second one has the correct SSID. If it is a matter of a duplicate SSID, go to IBM site, deactivate the wrong one and associate it with the correct one. If it is the matter of you use the wrong SSID, you can't deactivate an SSID because it's a valid SSID for someone else. Make sure that you have your two records though. On the FS standing, the oldest one with the wrong SSID and the newest one with the correct SSID. The other type of missing data is fatal errors. If it says fatal errors, you have a fatal error on one of your level 1 validations. And if you have a fatal error on a special ed event record, it's going to prevent anything with that student from going. If you have a fatal error on the FD record, it's going to prevent anything from that student from going. So once you correct your fatal error, then your missing student and your invalid records will disappear. And then once you've verified, certify and submit. The reporting process, maintain all student-related data and student information. Then you'll run the verification programs, update the student information screens, transfer data to the data collector. You will get level 1 validations immediately. Level 2 reports are generated nightly. Make sure that you are verifying them on a regular basis. Because especially like your FTE reports, they can change based on what someone else did. So you may not have submitted in 3 or 4 weeks and you looked at your reports and everything was hunky-dory 3 or 4 weeks ago. And someone else may submit data that had a student that was you were reporting, and now you have adjustments and errors that you didn't have before. So you need to make sure that you are keeping up on all of that. Timelines, the final window closes on July 14th. And it's for all data up through the last day of school. Actually, event data goes through June 30. The processing, the final collection periods are open for both community schools and traditional districts. So work often. I'm going to go quickly through the period G checklist because we've already talked about most of it. And then I'll go through some things on assessments. And then I have a couple other things. I guess one other thing I haven't mentioned yet.
Can I interrupt real quick? I'm sorry,
Yes.
because I may have to leave only because I have some time out this afternoon. So for that, this is for Diana, for the secondary planning.
Yes.
It is a fatal error. So what needs to be put in there when you have that and you don't put it on the original RIP is a TPNP, transition plan not in place.
Okay.
Until you get the AIEP or the RIEP, the next one
Okay.
done. But I was taking information out of my email, which one of them said it was a critical, but when I went to the
Okay.
data collect, it actually is. And then for casino count, JVSs do not get money for that.
Okay,
Now, if they have to report it, I don't, if
okay.
she put the information from them. And I think, was that all of the questions? Oh, preschool. I believe they still have to report it. That was FY19 that they started reporting, and I did not find anything. All the tickets ask it if they have a preschool, licensed preschool, they need to report them.
Yeah, if you have a licensed preschool, and in order to operate the preschool, they have to have a license with the state. If they have a licensed preschool, then you have to report the students.
And I didn't look through the changes, but I will do that.
Okay.
So
The-
sorry about that. Okay.
The error on secondary planning on the IEP event, that is a fatal error, but there is a code
TPNP.
transition not in place that you will put on the event record where it should have been done and wasn't, so that the fatal error will go away, and then they will have to do either an AIP or an RIP to have that transition in place. Annie, the only other question on Diana's is the ETR expired.
Right. I haven't found that one
Okay.
yet, but I will
Okay.
email her on that one. Thank you.
I wanted to make sure we didn't forget about that question.
Yeah, I have it wrote down. Sorry.
Okay, graduate collection. It overlaps with year-end. This is a unique collection because this is the only collection that pulls out of both the current year and the next school year. So it will pick up students out of both. And the driving factor is the diploma date prior to the first day of next school year. The tasks are duplicated in each collection checklist because we don't want you to forget anything. So the first thing is, and this should be done, but if they add new courses, they need to verify the course subject area for credit. And make sure that all of the courses and the manually entered course history records are updated correctly for the correct subject area for credit.
I have a question. If this is done after, like, Megan does her final promotion, does that have anything, like, would they still go up if it was a sophomore on their course history, or does that have to do with what you do with the fall initialization?
The question is, if they don't fix the courses until Megan does her final promotion, or after she actually starts the next school year, then will it go up when I do fall initialization? And the answer on that is neither. Courses are year specific. And when you make a change after Megan initializes the 21-22 school year, she copies up the course master if the district or building wants the course master copied up to the next school year. Once that course master is copied up, it's never copied up again. And that course master in 21-22 is never touched again from anything done. If you do something in 2021, that doesn't affect 21-22. So if you go into 21-20 or 2021 and make changes to the core subject area for credit, then you need to go up to 21-22 and make the changes up there if those changes need to be made in the 21-22 year. What you make in 2021 will affect the student's course history for 2021, what you make and what changes you make in manually entered course history. It basically, it applies to whichever year that course history is for. And that's, so if you need to go back to a student's 9th grade record, then you would go back to whatever year they would have been in 9th grade, go into course history and make the change there, or go into courses and make the change there in that particular year. And then when you run the course summary update, it will update based on what it was at that particular year when the student took that particular course.
I have a question about the screen that you had up. So I'm reading this, it says courses approved under the articulation agreement through the College Board of Regents. Okay, so we have articulation agreements for our labs on certain courses that they take that relate to some of our courses. Should I be marking those as dual credit?
No. Courses marked as an articulation agreement are not considered dual credit because they only get college credit if they would go to the college that the articulation agreement is with. It's not a blanket, I'm granted college credit plus course credit for this course because I took this as a college credit plus course. I took this as an articulation course. So if that agreement is with COTC. So if I go to COTC, I will get credit for this. But if I go to OUZ or Ohio State, I won't get credit because the articulation agreement was only with COTC. So COTC will grant me credit, but no one else will. So no, that's not considered dual credit, and you won't put in college credit hours on that. But that is a really good question. Update the student college credit values for dual credit courses. And this is on the college credit management screen. There are 2 tabs. The first tab is all of your courses that you're offering currently. The second tab is the manually entered course history. If you have the college credit hours on the, I believe it's the marks tab, it's the second tab of the course record, then when you go into that course section in the college credit management screen, it will default at the top the hours that that course is worth. And then you can do a bulk update and select the students that get the hours and hit submit, and it will update their record with that number of hours. The manually entered course history is all of the course history that's entered in as dual credit. And then you can go through and enter in the college credit hours that the students earned for that course.
How do I figure out by looking at that information if my guidance has input the college credit maintenance yet?
You see that field over here that says college credit?
Yes.
Is there a number in it?
No, but sometimes there's a 0.00.
If there is a 0, that means they don't get any hour credit.
That's not right either, because she just asked me about one of mine in the manually entered. I haven't given them anything yet, and the kid did get the credit. But hers says 0.00, and it's the only kid on the list.
And then some of them are blank, so I don't know if they, like, is it, I don't want to, like, give them 2 3-point college credits for if I hit the submit button or update or
Is the
whatever.
course entered in course history multiple times? See, that could be your issue too. If the course, if Northridge builds a satellite course and they have the credit on it, and if CTEC builds the same course and that's transferred over, or they give the information to the guidance counselors and it's manually entered as course history, then you may end up half the course in there twice. So that's something you need to look at too, making sure that you don't have the courses entered in multiple times. But if that college credit value on the college credit management screen is blank or 0, they're not getting any college credit hours credit for
I've
that
had a
course.
couple that had zeros too, when I was working online, and I didn't understand.
Yeah, I just wanted to know how it works. So if I put 3 in it, she already did it, then I would know not to,
If she put 3 in,
it would stay there.
it would be there. Now, where are you saying she put the 3 in?
But, no, we're saying it says 0.00.
But where are you saying? On the college credit management or on the course record, on the course record on the MERTS tab under the college hours?
No, it's the college credit.
Yeah.
If it says 0 on the college credit management screen, they have not been granted any college credit hours yet.
Yeah, but all the other ones are blank. And they should be blank.
I don't know why some may end up with zeros instead of blanks,
So,
but if there is not a value, then they have not been given any hours.
okay, so if there's a value, then that means she already did it, already went up to their,
If there is a
Wherever you
value,
go.
then they have already entered it. If there is no value, they have not entered it, whether it's zeros or whether it's blank.
okay, so I just need to look at the course history of that child and see if the course is there twice.
Yeah, that would be something you'll need to check
Okay.
and verify
All options.
for duplicates. Okay, run your CRSE. There's also a better report in the ad hoc reports, and I don't have the name of that report here, that gives you more of the EMIS reportable information on the courses to see what is on the courses for all of the EMIS reportable fields. And it's better on that one if you run it and export it to Excel. Otherwise, your screen's about like this. And you may need a 200 magnifier in order to be able to read it. Power withdrawal, we already talked about this. Seals. There are a bunch of membership program codes for graduation seals and graduation pathways. Make sure everything that applies for that student is entered in. The release where seals will automatically go for transcripts is not available yet. We do not have a date as to when that release. We've been told end of May, it's the end of May, and I have not heard a specific date of when we will get that release.
We have, if we ever report any seals and I put them into memberships, does that automatically go over the school district for graduation reporting, or do I need to?
Question is for a career tech or JVSD, if they enter them in, will those seals transfer to the home district? And I believe the answer is no, because I do not believe that is in any part of the JVS conversion process. So I believe you will need to give that information to the resident district so that they can have it for their transcripts.
Mary, I think that might be on that grad points for student on in student information. You go, let me look real quick. I'll get back with you on that.
That may be on the grad points. But not everything you indicate on grad points automatically translates into what is reportable. So you need to make sure that the membership codes are entered also. Annie, are you still on there?
Yes, 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 I am.
Was
I
there a
am.
question in chat that just came up?
No, that was me. I just
Oh.
said I need to leave. Everyone have a great lunch and I'll talk to you all later. Thanks, Mary.
Okay, thanks, Annie.
Thank you.
And then if they did the seal by literacy, on the FN graduate tab, you can select all of the languages the student is proficient in. We talked about updating the graduation date and diploma type. And here's where we're talking about updating your FN graduate tab with the core economics and financial literacy, the core fine arts, the exempt from physical education graduation requirement, the core requirement exemption, and the core graduation requirement met. This can be done through student profile bulk update. The only one I recommend that you do this way is the core graduation requirement met, because the others should be done when the student meets that requirement and not wait until they're graduating to bulk update everything. And then once everything's in, the EMIS coordinator runs the core summary verify. Do the update, and Kathy, don't be afraid to say update, because it says delete. Because it's only that holding area that it deletes. It's not deleting any data. But if you make manual changes, then your manual changes to that core summary record would be gone if you did an update. So I don't recommend doing manual changes, making sure that the course history or the courses are updated, and then do the update again. You can make the corrections. Okay. You can run the equivalent of Uncle EMIS on period G and make sure your errors are corrected there. And then verify all assessment records are in. All of these assessments will be transferred with the graduate collection. And then transfer your graduate collection data. Make sure that you are in the 2021 school year when you do the transfer. Some of your data may be in the 2021 or the 21-22. Some of it may be in the 2021. You have to be in the 2021 school year when you do the transfer. Summer withdrawal. Your summer grads that complete after July 1 must be done in the 21-22 school year. The withdrawal date must be prior to the first date of any calendar for your district in the next school year. And the withdrawal code would be 99. Grad only records, we already talked about these. We already talked about the student withdrawal override. This can be used if you need to change a withdrawal code that would cause a student to be in a different grad cohort. We're transferring our data, running the data collector for period G. Okay, now on to assessments.
One question.
Yes.
I don't know if I heard this right.
in the 2021 school year.
Yes.
Anybody new that graduates after that date, graduates sometime after the first day of school, you report that in next year's.
Yes.
That's
Oh.
collection.
No. Okay. The question is, how do I do my summer grad? I'm collecting my graduate collection out of the 2021. I'm coding my summer graduate as a graduate in the 21-22. How do they get picked up? The withdraw information gets picked up in the S collection for the 21-22 year. The graduate information gets pulled and reported with the 2021 graduate collection. That's the only collection that crosses 2 years. So the diploma date will drive that graduate's pulled in the 2021 graduate collection, even though the graduation date is August 1st of 21, reported in the 21-22 school year. It will pull that student as part of the 2021G collection. The withdraw date will be reported with your S collection in 21-22. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when does the grad collection close, do you know?
October, November, the graduate collection is open until October or November of 21. Period A checklist, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I do want to touch on a couple of things. All assessments are their own collection requests. Each start and end at different times. The assessment checklist isn't due in this order. It just indicates the file format for loading and instructions on what elements are for each type. Here's all of the file types. The only change is that the ACT is now a CSV format. And we've sent out some emails about some cautions on that. There are some headers that you need to change, and the file that you download from ACT's website is a cumulative for the year. And so it could cause duplicate records. So you may have to modify the file to remove records that you've already loaded before you load the next group of assessment records.
Has everybody gotten their ACT file?
I do not know if the files are available. You may go out to the ACT website or have your,
Yeah, they said they've tried and they can't get it. But I know some people have done it. We don't have our, I think Christine had to call. I don't have John's phone. We're gonna do it, yeah. Shit.
So some reminders for importing. You must have the district in context. You can't be in a building. Navigate to the page and use the drop-down list to select the type of assessment to be imported. There's test date required if you're importing the web exam, the preschool ELA, or the KRA results. Browse for your vendor file. Once you have hit upload, then you will get number of records loaded. And then you can go to the import management screen. It will show you if there's any mismatch records that it couldn't match up and load. It will also show you what records were loaded, and then it will show you if there were any record errors on records. I will upload web exam when I get them. I'm not positive when I will get them because they have extended the timeline for districts to send information to SEAT to June 25th. So I don't know timeline of when I will get the web exams for this year. Kathy?
Do we upload, I mean, our kids took the WebEx, but we are also able to use the course grade as the test. Do we upload both of them, or do we pick and choose, or go delete the WebEx if we decide to use the course grade?
The question is, they're giving us the option for 11th and 12th grade students to, even if they took the WebEx, to use course grades for their WebEx exam. So if they use the course grades, do I delete out the WebEx if they took it, or do I leave it and I report both? You report both. ODE will use the higher of the
Okay,
scores.
Do I use the same date for both of them? No. What is a different date?
What date that you use, if you entered it through and sent the information up to SEAT, then the date will be on the file that they send me back. And so you won't have to worry about the specific date. Otherwise, I think it's 6/1 that you need to use.
Okay, so the WebEx exams are still in their little site.
Yes,
And then we do our course grades, input it into that.
that
little
same site.
And then they're gonna give you
Yes.
both of my files. Okay.
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, the question is, okay, what's the process? The process is students take web exam. Districts load courses into SEAT, and then SEAT, OSU web exam, it's all the same umbrella package, will send me, the ITC, the file for your district, and then I will upload that file
Okay,
for your district when I get it.
okay.
Here's a list of all of the assessment collections and their close dates. And you can see they're all over the board. So just make sure that you have all of the data in from your district by the close dates. There's analytic hub reports, transfer. When you do your assessment collection, just transfer all the time, and then you can just collect everything that's out there to be collected. There are missing reports for most of the assessments, and we are doing an EMIS Alliance session on missing assessments. I believe that one is on Wednesday. If you have not signed up and you would like to, go out to our event calendar and sign up. I think when I checked yesterday, there were 7 signed up. There's also 7 signed up for our Where Kids Count EMIS Alliance on Tuesday. If you have not signed up and you would like to, please go out to our event calendar and sign up. I will be sending out the documentation to anyone that registers. One nice thing about the EMIS Alliance, you don't have to be a LACA district to attend LACA's EMIS Alliance training. You can attend it from whatever district you're at, and you're going, well, why are you saying that when you're talking to our people? Well, I haven't said this yet, but Michelle is leaving us. She is going to the East Central Ohio ESC as their EMIS coordinator, and she will be stationed in Cambridge, so it's not requiring a move for her. And then we have 2 other changes. Our lovely Lisa Fitch decided to leave the EMIS world altogether in education, and she went to the dogs. Yes, she bought a doggy day spa, boarding and grooming and doggy daycare. And so Kelly Small is now EMIS coordinator at Granville. And if you know someone who wants to join our wonderful ranks and hopefully has some experience or knowledge in education, Johnstown is looking for someone. And so we will have a few changes. So that's why I mentioned that about the EMIS Alliance. But yeah, if you're registered, I'll get you a copy of the handouts. Questions? Oh, one other thing. In the newsflash yesterday morning, there was a part at the bottom, which I missed until one of my districts said, could you talk about the KRA? I'm like, what about the KRA? If you go to reports received files and type in KRA, there were 1 or 2 KRA files sent down on May 17th. If you have the invalid scores file, that means that your scores have been updated on the KRA's K-Ready site, and you need to download the new file. But I believe if I read the instructions correctly, and I did not print anything out, so I apologize, I don't have them in front of me. You need to file a KRA appeal to submit the changed scores. Huh? I thought the KRA appeal was open till June 18th because of this recent change. Yes, that was extended because of the vendor mess. So it's now June 18th is when it closes. In the data collector, go to reports, receive files. In the file name includes, type KRA and hit list files. And you will have a valid KRA valid scores, and you may have a KRA invalid scores. If you have a KRA invalid scores, then that means that you have KRA scores that were changed because of an issue in the K-Ready site.
So Mary, because I went out there to KRA yesterday, load that, send it, I'm still not sure what they.
The question is, I went out and I looked at it, and I went out to the K-Ready site. Do I download a new file to import? I would have to read all of those instructions again, but there is no KRA collection to submit it. So you can't submit it through EMIS. You have to submit it through that template that is in the appeal, is my understanding. They are not going to automatically change it. You have to, if you have that invalid file, you do have to take care of it. So I will do some more research on it. I apologize yesterday. I did not have time with everything that I had going on to adequately reach this, research this. And I will send out more information as I have it.
But those grades, we should correct those in our system.
I think you should go ahead and load the new file and correct them in student information, yes. The question is, did everyone get one? Not everyone received an invalid KRA. Everyone received a KRA valid, but you may have 2 KRA files, one that says valid scores and one that says invalid scores. So I recommend that you go to reports, receive files, and I'll also double check, and I'll contact you if you have issues that I think you need to correct and file the appeal based on the news flash yesterday.
So the instructions were in the newsflash?
Yes, they're at the bottom. They're in the newsflash talked about the PEBT for the summer. And that was the part that I read.
That's what I read too.
And then I filed it, and then I got a help desk ticket. What about the KRA? And I'm like, what about the KRA? What was on the newsflash? It's like, oh, I didn't go that far.
Well, then KRA sent out, after that, they sent out an email with, I don't know why they're doing this now, but then it had instructions.
So who received the email on that? KRA also sent out an email, I guess, but I don't know who received that email from KRA. Are there any other questions? I apologize for going over, but we had an awful lot of information to do.